So, have you ever wondered exactly how do you get started if you want to learn AI, full stack development, and Python? Well, in this video, I will be telling you exactly a guided step-by-step roadmap on how you can actually become a full stack AI Python engineer. My name is Kuketo Capfresh, and this is Billionaire Developers. Welcome once again to today's presentation, and I will be talking about how to actually become an ultimate full stack AI Python engineer. And this is from literally from zero all the way to mastery. So if you are a beginner or actually just starting out or actually an expert trying to become an actually master, this presentation will actually give you a fully detailed step-by-step guide or roadmap on how to actually become that. So guys, what are we going to be covering today? First and foremost, we'll be doing introductions. And then I'll be talking to you what exactly is an AI full stack Python engineer, right? We'll be taking things way back, how AI started and where Python actually started. We'll be then looking at the most important question is why you should become an AI engineer. I'll be also covering some full stack concepts, and then I'll be also giving you a very detailed roadmap in terms of how to get started and all the way for you to actually succeed. And then I'll be covering some really interesting facts in terms of job opportunities that you guys can actually look into, and then we'll do the final wrap up and close up. So guys, let's jump straight into it. But if you guys are new to the channel, you're probably asking yourself, what is Billionaire Developers all about, right? So basically, Billionaire Developers is here to help you guys. It's basically a global tech and an AI community focused technology software development platform where we'll be actually discussing a lot of AI, software, gaming as concepts just to actually empower you guys. And if you guys are actually interested in learning how to code, how to know about AI, and if you're also interested into gaming. But you're probably asking yourself, who is this guy, right? So I go by the name of Goketo Capfresh. I am the founder as well as the senior tech lead as well as the tech content creator here on this channel. But a little bit about myself is that I'm a four-time AI certified software engineer. I'm an international speaker as well as a mentor, and I've worked with affiliations such as Google, Microsoft, IBM, AWS. But guys, this is not really about me, right? So the most important question is, what is an AI full stack Python engineer, right? So in simple terms, an AI Python full stack engineer is someone that works with software who uses Python as their primary language and obviously integrates it and creates applications. But this is end to end applications, right? So they'll be incorporating things like data, they'll be using AI models, they'll be using backend systems, they'll be using front end interfaces, and also incorporating cloud development to actually build a fully fledged system. But it's not just only about training and working with models, right? Becoming an AI engineer is really something that it's going to take time for you to actually develop, but it's definitely time worth invested. First and foremost, you're going to be working with collecting and processing data. You're going to be working with machine learning models or AI models, as I mentioned. You'll be also creating APIs and backend systems, right? You'll be working with servers. You'll be also, creating versioning. You'll be also working with databases. You'll be also working with design interfaces, right? Working on the front end. So the front end meaning like whatever you see on the screen is exactly what you'll also be building. You'll be deploying and scaling everything to the cloud. You'll be working with either AWS, Microsoft, Google, IBM, all of those services, right? But most and foremost, they build AI powered products. So it could be applications, it could be websites, it could be mobile apps, it could be even devices, right? Internet of Things has now become AI of Things. Now let's take it way back, right? So before we jump into the technical things, let's just take a step back and actually let's walk step by step and see where exactly everything actually started. So let's look at the birth of Python in the 90s. I know some of you guys might not be around by then, but yeah, Python was actually birthed in 1991 by someone called Guido van Rommen, and he created Python. And as the years went by in the 2000s, frameworks like Django, which is a very popular back-end framework for which is actually developed from Python, was actually born. And then we look at the early 2010s, right? This is where the AI boom came in. So we had things like TensorFlow and PyTorch, which is also Python libraries that actually uses a lot of AI and machine learning capabilities. Fast forward a little bit later, let's look at the mid 2015s era. We have the birth of cloud, data, and DevOps revolution, right? So this is where your AWSs, your Azures, GCPs come into play, and we actually can integrate it and work it with Python to create these AI models. Then if you're looking at the early 2020s, this is the birth of AI power tools, right? So you might be familiar with a Copilot, you might be familiar with ChatGPT, you might be, Cursor, all of these emerging developer workflows. And now, when we look at AI today, will be actually, these are like engineers that are not just coding, right? They're just building AI powered full stack applications. But yet again, here's other interesting, fact about the history of when it comes to AI and it comes to full stack development. So these are just interesting. Some of these names I don't want to even attempt to say because I don't want to be butchering people's names, but this is just some interesting facts for you guys to actually see the genesis and actually, where these actually technologies were created by who, right? And here's another interesting picture to actually see, the founder of AI, which is John McCarthy. Then we can actually see, people that were responsible for creating CSS, HTML, Django, and Python. But now let's move on and let me answer the most important question. And the most important thing and why we're here today is why you should become an AI Python full stack engineer, right? The importance of it all. First and foremost, it's very, very, very high in demand. Right now, AI, obviously, it's in its boom era, and I always encourage you guys to please start learning how to get into AI, learning how to code in Python. It has huge growth potential, right? The demand for AI and machine learning for professionals is skyrocketing. I don't think I need to actually iterate that. I think everybody knows that by now, right? It has a versatile opportunities. So as a full stack engineer, you can work in various diverse roles, right? You can work with data analytics, you can work with data scientists, you can work with other AI engineers, you can work with full stack developers, back end developers, front end developers, right? So it means your role is really not boxed and it's actually quite versatile in that sense. Lucrative salary, guys. Obviously, we're here for the rands and the cents, the dollars, the pounds, right? Definitely competitive salaries, right? So the more you are actually more proficient in AI, the higher you can actually be able to earn those big bucks, right? It has a growth potential. You have growth in earnings, and obviously the money can only just get better and better, right? Then you'll also be working like impactful work. So this is meaning you'll be working with very like technologies and solutions that are actually very meaningful, right? Things that actually matter in this world. So even in different industries, healthcare, finance, education, law, construction, gaming, right? So literally the list is, it's endless, right? There's a plethora of opportunities, and literally every industry right now, there's no industry that can say that they don't necessarily need AI to actually improve or better their workflow. And most importantly, problem solving, right? You have to have a mindset of, I want to be able to know how to solve problems, technical problems, complex problems. You'll be working with AI in terms of solving real world problems. But that's not just it, right? Another interesting thing is AI right now, it has a very big and an engaging community. What I mean by that is that a lot of people, are so invested in learning about AI is that you yourself can also reach out to different platforms in terms of connecting and trying to learn more about AI. Long life living and growth, right? So AI is clearly, it seems like it's going to be here forever. It's not here to, it's here to stay. It's not something that's going to come tomorrow and leave the next week, right? It is already today. I once mentioned in my previous video that AI is not tomorrow, AI is right now, right? So another thing is about ethical considerations. So ethics and considerations, obviously, it's all about being non-biased and being, inclusive in terms of race, in terms of demographics, backgrounds, genders, and also people with disability, right? So, and also you have to make sure that you're using people's data quite accurately, right? So when you create your models, making sure that the data is accurate, that the data is up to date, because when you train your models, you need to make sure that your data first and foremost is quite clean. Other interesting stats when you look at it in a global scale, AI right now you can earn between 120 and even more than this actually, globally as a full stack Python full stack engineer. If you're looking at the next couple of years, by 2030, there will be 3 million new jobs in the sector. I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of job opportunities out there. And within the next decade, the demand for AI and machine learning jobs is projected to grow 20 to 35% within the next decade. So, guys, this is the perfect time for you to really invest and hop onto learning how to learn more about AI. Right, so remember I did say I'll be covering some full stack concepts, right? So I've been talking about AI and Python. So what exactly is a full stack developer, right? So basically this a full stack person, it just refers to the complete set of technologies and components involved in building a web application or a software, right? So remember I mentioned there's the front end, there's the back end. You'll be working with the user interface, you'll be working with, the things that you see visually on a web application, and also you'll be working on the back end, things like working with APIs, databases, DevOps, cloud. But if you're still confused about that, let me just break it down even further for you guys, right? So what is the difference between a front end and a back end engineer, right? So front end basically means that you're working with the client side, right? So client side just means the things that you see on your screen, the buttons, the pictures, the gallery, all the fancy stuff that you see on the front on your on the application or other on the website, right? And this is basically comprised of three different important things: HTML, CSS, and then we have JavaScript. But we can actually take it even further by actually including a framework or a library such as React or Angular, right? So HTML, first and foremost, it structures the website. So it just puts everything in the correct places. CSS, right? It works with styling in terms of the look and feel, adding color, adding borders, adding pictures, and so forth. And then JavaScript actually provides more functionality, right? So making things transactions, transitions, effects, you know, for instance, if you want to click a button, those are the things that JavaScript can help with. But like I said, then you have libraries and you have frameworks like React and Angular, which is right now the most up to date and the most recent technologies we use for front end. Now, we've got that on lock. Let's look at the back end. Back end is all the stuff, all the fancy technical stuff that we don't see in the backside, right? So for instance, if I go to www.google.com, right, the back end will actually deal with how actually we'll be communicating with the server to say, hey, I'm looking for this web page, and come and deliver it on the front end. But one thing you need to understand is it's not as difficult as it seems, right? You'll be working with it, just basically deals with business logic, right? The back end databases, APIs, integration with back end components, or working with the cloud, right? So typical ones that you might know is, obviously, I keep mentioning Python. This is Python for me, it's definitely one of the best programming language that I feel that we should definitely focus on. Then we have the frameworks as well. So even on the front end, we have frameworks like React and Angular. On the back end, we also have frameworks as well. So we have things like Flask, we have Django, we even have Node. And then we also, another thing is, you need to know about API. So we have RESTful APIs, we have GraphQL services. This is just to make sure that when we try to communicate with the database, is our data correct? Are we hitting the correct endpoints? Is there going to be, like, for instance, if there's a server that is down, or if there's a network issue, you'll be also working with that. But don't despair, I'll be going more into details about web development in another video. But right now, Let me explain exactly what you need to do right now. So pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you. First and foremost, what you want to do is you want to first focus on learning Python. Guys, learn Python. And now, when I mean learn Python, I'm not saying you should really be an expert as yet, but you really need to understand the fundamentals and the basics of Python, syntax, object oriented programming. You'll learn about things like data structures. You'll be learning things about algorithms. You'll be learning about handling modules. Basically the basis of everything, right? And then the second thing you need to do is let's focus on web development. I spoke about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yet again, you really need to know the basics, right? You need to know to structure your code in terms of, if I'm trying to build a simple landing page, what do I need to do? I need to know how does HTML communicate with CSS, and how does JavaScript communicate with HTML, right? You need to also know how to structure things like calling images, or am I communicating with a API? Am I communicating with a database, right? These are just basic information. I also think that you also need to deep dive in terms of understanding how the web works, right? Also include like things like learning about client side versus server side. How do they communicate, right? So think about, if I go to a certain URL or a website, what actually happens in the background, right? Then what you do is learn a bit of data science, right? So Python has really, really cool modules and libraries such as NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, where you're going to be dealing with data a lot, right? You're going to be dealing with a lot of data, different types of data. We have big data nowadays, right? Where we're going to be working with images, we're going to be working with CSS files, we're going to be working with documents, PDFs, right? Nowadays, now we're working with things like YouTube videos, right? So I think you just need to learn the basics of how how do you work with data. Another thing you want to then move on to is basics of machine learning, right? Supervised versus unsupervised. You're going to be learning about how to create models, how to create an algorithm, right? So these are just the basics that you definitely need to look out for. Then you want to go a bit deeper, right? Now we getting into the nitty gritty of things. You want to learn how to work with neural networks as well as deep learning, right? So Python has a really has libraries such as PyTorch and TensorFlow, where it handles all the heavy lifting for you, but you have to do a bit more deep diving, learning about transformers, learning about CNNs and RNNs, right? And then what you also want to do is natural processing languages. So think of how ChatGPT, how your Copilot actually communicates, right? So those are primarily LLMs, and they were built on top of natural language processing, tokenization, embeddings, LLMs, right? LangChain. So those are just typical things that you can look into. Then what you want to do is learn cloud infrastructure and DevOps, right? So learn a great platform like AWS or Azure. You also need to learn about CI and CD pipelining. And this is obviously, it's more like orchestration. If you're trying to, I've built a whole application, how do I now ship it in terms of deployment? Deployment meaning, how do now my users get to use this, or how does my client get to use this application? And then most importantly, we need to take into consideration AI ethics and responsible AI. I spoke about, being biased, being fair, being inclusive, making sure that you are abiding by, if certain countries definitely have things like, governance policies. So we need to make sure that we are, number one, using the correct data, right? Number two, how are we using the data? It's making sure that, it's inclusive, everybody is also being included. Now, just when you think that all done, now this is where the interesting work comes in. This is where you now integrate everything, right? We're combining the full stack integration, where we've been working with the front end, we've been working with all our models, we've been working with the back end, we've been working with our APIs, databases. Now we need to bring everything together. So we have things like unit testing, we have integration testing, and then we have end-to-end testing, meaning now I'm fully fledged and building out my AI model, my software, my web application, right? And then most importantly, guys, you need to have a portfolio that actually showcases your work. So once you've learned all of this information, and the thing is, you can actually start building these projects while you learn, right? What this does is that it also shows, potential clients or potential companies that you actually are capable of actually building something, right? Try to build at least 3 to 5 real working apps, right? Apps that actually can be used by by everyone on a daily basis. So this will actually give you more credibility, that actually, and more confidence into the hiring person or the client to say, actually, I want to work with this person. And then most importantly, making sure that your GitHub repo is up to date. This is where you obviously will be saving a lot of your code base. You'll be doing a lot of comments, because some teams actually, they do want to see that, okay, you said that you built this, but let's see your code. All right. So learn also how to work with GitHub, and also make sure that you start preparing for job interviews and taking interview guidelines. Watch videos, right? I mean, right now YouTube, it's the school of education. Now, some really cool, interesting facts that I just saw is that in the future, these are just like some emerging AI jobs that you'll be hearing. Seeing things like generative AI full stack developer, right? So this person will be designing and building applications powered by generative models. So generative models meaning AI has now learned and trained off certain data, and now they can start generating information or images or videos by themselves, right? We have an AI integrated full stack engineer. So this person builds and maintains full stack applications that obviously integrate AI capabilities, right? So we'll be looking at things like more chatbots. We'll have even websites where we can actually have full on conversations where I don't need to scroll down the whole website to actually find out what it is. I can simply talk to an agent in terms of, hey, I've landed on this website. What do I need to know? What are you guys all about? Who's responsible? How do I get contact with this person? Right? Nowadays, our websites are going to be more conversational than just more text based and picture based. An automation AI systems full stack engineer, right, builds self-directed AI agents, as I just mentioned, and intelligence systems that power the next generation of software. So what this technically means is that, a lot of processes now is that are going to be automated, right? If you have a client and you need to send them an invoice, nowadays AI can be able to generate things, an invoice for you. Nowadays, for instance, a booking system, if a client is try to book a session with you, AI can actually do that on your behalf. So as I said, guys, this is just a small list of what is capable of what's happening next. So, in final conclusion, this is the part of the conversation where we have a developer's digest, where we actually just reflect back and look back in terms of what we've actually learned today. So, the journey to becoming a proficient AI Python full stack engineer is filled with opportunities, challenges, and unprecedented potential. As we stand at the intersection of technology and creativity, your skills can drive innovation and shape the future of the world. And I always tell you guys, make sure that you learn, explore, innovate, collaborate, and build. Guys, thank you so much for actually tuning in. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Actually, don't just comment. How's about you drop me a question and let's keep the conversation going. What did you like about today? What was interesting for you? So guys, it's been good. It's been great. I go by the name of Go Get to Cap Fresh, and this is Billionaire Developers. Thank you.